Okay, we're here at Graspop with Bill from Carcass. Bill, thanks for having us, and thanks for the great album Surgical Steel, the first Carcass album in, I guess, 15 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long. Yeah, at least 15, maybe 16 or 17.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about recording, getting back in the studio after all these years?
Well, the recording was kind of the final stage of the process. To me, the real work was done in the rehearsal room when we were writing, and that was the most fun element of it. Because we were very free. We hadn't told anybody what we were doing, so that was quite liberating. We could take as long as we wanted to write this material. But the way it worked was it didn't take very long, because there was so much momentum. As soon as we started, the ideas were just flowing, and we knew very early on that the material was strong enough to release. Yeah, the studio thing, that was definitely different from the old days. The writing process was just the way we used to do it. That was familiar, but things have changed in the studio somewhat. We're not using tape for the first time, and that was peculiar. But we tried to make it as close to the familiar as it could be for us. I suppose the trickiest element was trying to reach some kind of middle ground with Colin, the producer, and Carl, his engineer, because they usually work with bands that record in the modern fashion, using Pro Tools in a very strict sense, you know, recording on the grid. So you've got a click track, then everything can be gridded out, and if you want to move a verse or a chorus, you can just do it. It's just done with a click. So a lot of bands can actually avoid playing through an entire song. You know, you can just play a riff and then loop it if you wish. So I think for them it was a harder job, because we had to play everything. Every note on this album was actually played rather than copied and pasted, because we recorded it freeform. There was no click track.
So in a way, if I understood you correctly, there wasn't a lot of pressure recording the album, even if it had been for so long?
No, because nobody knew we were making a record until actually the final day of recording. Somebody leaked that information via blabbermouth, which was very annoying at the time, but you know, that's life. But up until that point, it was total secrecy, and we were in our own little bubble, and we were having a great time. Yeah, I mean, of course, we were aware that in the outside world, people might have certain expectations, and some people would take a position on a new Carcass album before they've even heard it. I know a lot of people wanted to hate this record, and that's natural, because the history of bands coming back after that kind of layoff and making a valid record is pretty poor.
But I think it's pretty safe to say that the reactions have been very, very positive. Did that surprise you in a way?
Yes, it did, because we believed in the material enough to release it. Obviously, we thought it was strong, but we were prepared for the really hardcore Carcass people to love it, and everybody else to either slag it or ignore it. So what took place was a big shock to us. We ended up getting quite a lot of press and some really favourable reviews from areas we didn't expect. So yeah, it was lovely. It was just a big surprise. I still think it's amazing, actually. Yeah.
You mentioned some of the differences in the recording studio, technically wise. You also mentioned the internet. Those are some things that have changed over the past. But if you look at the global state of metal back when you started, I think it's safe to say there's a big difference as well.
Yeah, but how do you view it? Why do you think it's different now?
Well, in a way, it has been said in the press a couple of times that it's difficult to find acts who have the same status as the big bands from the 80s.
Yes.
There has not really been a new Judas Priest,
No,
Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Everyone's talking about that. Like, who's going to be on a magazine cover? Because when you get past those bands and the Metallicas and the Slayers, yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of new bands, maybe too many, but none have really made the breakthrough to becoming huge, and that includes us.
If you look at Carcass is a hugely influential band, but if you look at bands like Volbeat or Avenged Sevenfold, even Sabaton, you like them or you hate them, but it's probably hard to imagine that they would be in the same place at Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Priest, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on what's happening because I don't keep up, unless I'm out and about, like at a festival. I hear things and I see bands, but when I'm at home I don't keep up. I'm not a very internet kind of person, and I listen to music all the time, but it's older music. But the impression I've got is, yeah, metal's a huge thing, but it's really hard to tell who's going to be the next massive band. And at the moment it feels like nobody, because the conditions aren't right for that to happen in a way. There's a lot of bands out there who are playing really well and working hard, but I don't think it's that time where somebody can break through in that fashion. Maybe that will change down the line, hopefully.
I hope you won't keep us waiting as long for a new CD to come out. It's perhaps a bit early to ask about a possible release, but...
Yeah, I would love to do another one, but right now we can't really say much because we're touring up until... Well, I say touring. We have been touring for the last however long, months and months, and now it's festivals for several months, and then we have another US tour, and suddenly it's Christmas. But I really do hope we have a quiet period over Christmas and New Year where we can maybe get our heads together and write a few tunes, because we're not going to take this next album lightly. If we do one, we need to have something to offer. We can't make an album that's exactly like the last one.
But after the amazing last album, I think that people are expecting big things.
Yeah, it's going to be harder next time, because I think most people expected very little from us, which is natural. But because we did a decent record, that means the next one has to be a fair bit better. So, yeah.
Okay. What have you missed the most the last couple of years when you were not touring? I know you did some touring, but when you were not touring on a new CD, about being in a band or...
You won't believe this, but the thing I miss the most, would be actually sitting in a van going up and down the motorway in Britain. The least glamorous bit. I don't know why, but I think it's probably because that's how I started doing this. You know, when I was a little kid, like, you know, whatever, just turned 17. That's how I got into playing in bands, and yeah, for some reason that was the gut feeling that I had, like, oh, that's missing from my life. I didn't miss the planes and stuff and doing the good gigs in interesting places as much as that. I don't know why. Although, sure, you know, it's great to travel, and it's usually better to be playing in Europe than the UK, with a few exceptions. But yeah, I think that was the main thing. I just felt like that's a grassroots thing, and if you can't do that, you know, you're really missing out, because that's kind of the bedrock of music. It's fun. I mean, playing to 50, 75 people in a pub, that's reality. If you can pull that off and reach people, you're really achieving something.
I think it's safe to say that you're one of the key figures, or one of the big names in grindcore or death metal. I can imagine that people wonder if you listen to other kinds of music as well.
Yeah, well, I definitely do. My comfort zone for music is definitely hard rock and early heavy metal. So that would span roughly early 70s through to early 80s. That period of music I love. Guitar music. But then I love blues, I love soul music. I still like the earlier kind of thrash and death metal. So that would be, you know, things like Slayer and Death and so on. I love stuff like Merciful Fate. There isn't that much new stuff that's grabbed me. I've seen a couple of bands that have been really impressive. It's just something I don't lock into when I'm at home, really.
Okay. Last question. Have you been able to check out some bands today, or do you plan to?
So far, I have only seen Mastodon, because we arrived quite late. But I enjoyed them. I mean, I always do, because what they do is quite different. I love to see people playing Gibson guitars with nice tones, and they've got a fantastic drummer. So yeah, I enjoyed it.